Hey, welcome everybody to the Leadership Playbook. It's our live show about leadership. So appreciate you guys joining us on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on YouTube, wherever you're watching this. Maybe you're listening to this on the Success is a Choice podcast network. So wherever you're getting this, we appreciate you tuning in. We believe that great teams have great teammates and that everybody, yes, even you, can be a person of influence. We believe in positive leadership, and that's what this show's about. We want to try to give you something positive, to try to help you become a better leader, a better person of influence, a more positive person of influence, so that therefore you can make the people around you better and make them positive influences as well. Speaking of great teammates, great teams have great teammates, but a great teammate, Tristen Foote. We appreciate you joining us today, Tristen. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon. Happy to be here.
Yeah, well, I'm sure you're very happy with you're an Arizonian. I don't know if that's even the word, but you're from Arizona, and your Phoenix Suns. I assume they're your Phoenix Suns now because they're winning, but they're up 1-0 in the NBA Finals. So I'm sure you're very excited about that.
Yeah, anytime a team from Arizona is doing well, it's a very big deal. So everyone in Arizona is freaking out. I'm in Indiana, but I'm celebrating right there with them.
Well, did you have family members? Were you a big Phoenix Suns fan a couple of years ago, or is it just now?
I do have family members that enjoy watching the Suns all the time. I'm not exactly one of those, but they're fun to watch now.
Of course, now that they're winning, and
That's right.
For people that don't really know about what's going on with the Phoenix Suns, 2 years ago they had the worst record in the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
So they've had an amazing season this year. They're in the NBA Finals. They're up 1-0 against the Milwaukee Bucks, but 2 years ago they hired a new coach, Monty Williams, who's really changed that culture. And I know that's kind of a cliche, to change the culture, but he really has, and he's gone in there and really been a leader. And so when we think of leadership, that's what we're about, talking about culture, talking about leadership. It's not that they brought in all these new talented players. It's not that they have superior talent. I think that they're getting it done because of leadership. And one of the things is Monty Williams. Monty Williams is a great leader as a head coach, and he's kind of set a different tone for that organization. And he's been there 2 years now. The 3 years previous to him getting there, they finished last twice in the NBA. So 30th out of 30 teams. And another year they finished 29th out of 30 teams. So the 3 years previous to Monty Williams becoming the head coach, they finished last or second to last in the NBA. And so, in just 2 years there, he's got them in the NBA Finals. That's pretty impressive. And to top it all off, you got a Chris Paul who joined the team 2 years ago or 3 years ago when the Phoenix Suns were losing, when they were last in the league. Their best rebounder was DeAndre Ayton, a young guy. Their leading scorer was Devin Booker, a really young guy. Devin Booker was averaging 26 points a game. DeAndre Ayton averaging 10, 11, 12 rebounds a game. Well, this year, their leading scorer, Devin Booker, averaging 26 points a game, and DeAndre Ayton averaging 10 or 11 rebounds a game. That didn't change. Their talent didn't change, but they added a guy named Chris Paul, who's an amazing player, one of the all-time greatest leaders, greatest point guards. And then they also added a guy named Jay Crowder, who's with the Miami Heat last year when they went to the finals. And he's just been to a lot of finals, a lot of playoff games. He's just a great leader. So they added some pieces that aren't necessarily amazing talents in their prime right now. They're older guys, but they added those leaders on the court and then Monty Williams, and that made all the difference and helped that team mesh and gel a little bit better. I know you've played a lot of sports in your career. Have you ever been a part of a team or seen kind of a leadership thing where it's directly impacted maybe other players or directly impacted the team?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I was a freshman going into Indiana Wesleyan University, the year prior to me being a freshman, they had a really not great record. They had a lot of team chemistry issues that whole season, it was our coach's first year. And that whole season was such a transitional year and developmental year that coach put in so much effort into developing leaders they weren't going to be the best soccer players, but he made them really great leaders so that when he had such a large freshman year coming in the next year, we were able to learn so much from that senior class when they were seniors and we were freshmen. And it really set the tone for the rest of our years as we were going through Iowa women's soccer program. And my junior year, we ended up playing in the championship at Christian Nationals. And then a year after I graduated, the team actually did really, really well in NAIA Nationals. So I think that there's so much to say about setting such a tone for leadership. And it doesn't mean that you have to be the best person on the field. It doesn't mean that you have to be necessarily even like the most fit person. You just have to be able to lead the team and inspire girls to work the hardest, to work together, and to do their best.
Yeah, that's a great point, Tristen. And Chris Paul with your Phoenix Suns. Chris Paul has, you know, he mentioned a few days ago, one of his quotes was, you know, you're not much of a leader if you don't have anyone following you. And I do think that that's true. Now, I would go a step beyond and say, I think that his leadership and the Phoenix Suns have done well because they've helped not just like a DeAndre Ayton or a Devin Booker or some of these young guys are following Chris Paul, but I would say that he's made them better so that then they can do their jobs better and they can be leaders in their own way as well. Sometimes just leading themselves and leading in the locker room and doing what they're supposed to do. And sometimes that's an important thing, developing other leaders. And you know, Chris Paul doing, you mentioned, you know, a captain or a leader doing stuff by example. Chris Paul doing stuff professional. This is how we prepare. This is how we do things. This is what a great culture does, a great organization does. And some of these younger guys kind of see that. And then maybe they start showing up a little bit early. Maybe they start acting a certain way, or when coach says something, they have eyes locked in, things like that. You know, the professionalism that a Chris Paul brings, you know, that can be contagious. And DeAndre Ayton, the tall post player, former high draft pick for the Phoenix Suns, he said that Chris Paul was the best thing that's ever happened to his career, which is amazing. So Chris Paul comes in, automatically that leadership turns that young team around. So that combined with Monty Williams, amazing stuff. So good stuff for your Phoenix Suns. Also, other good stuff is this week, my hat of choice. We no longer have the Uncle Sam hat. 4th of July has passed. The Uncle Sam hat has been retired, but I do now have my flat build, chin up, chest out hat. And we literally, I bought this. Okay. I bought this using promo code Playbook. I got 10% off. I got free shipping. So this wasn't like chinupchestout.com sent this to me. Hey, we want you to have a hat. We know you love wearing hats when you go out golfing. It wasn't that, even though I love those guys at Chin Up Chest Out. And even though they've sent us some good stuff, like this coffee mug with some orange Gatorade in it. That's my
no green tea or Monster today.
Not today. Orange Gatorade. That's my podcast juice of choice. In my beautiful coffee mug from chinupchestout.com. Their summer collection, so you can get that now. But back to this hat, I paid almost full price. I got 10% off. I got free shipping. It came to me pretty quickly. It was awesome. I had even forgotten what I'd bought. This box shows up. I was like, wow, a gift. I didn't even realize I bought anything. Open it up. There's my hat. So I got my new Chin Up Chest Out hat. Do you wear hats?
It looks
Tristen?
good. I do like hats, and I like when they're simple, like that one. I love that it's such a simple design.
Nice. Yeah. So go to chinupchestout.com, use Playbook coupon code, and get yourself 10% off. Get yourself some free shipping. Who does not like free shipping?
That's right. All right, everybody, let's welcome friend of the show, Brandon Podgorski. He is a professor of sports management at Trine University. Brandon, how's it going today?
It's going great. Jamy, looking amazing in that hat. Just an amazing sponsor, amazing hat. And I like the simplicity of it as well.
Well, Brandon, I have a question for you.
Yep.
Very important question. Do you like free shipping? when you buy
Who
something.
doesn't like free shipping?
Who doesn't like free shipping? You get free shipping by using coupon code Playbook. That's what I got. This hat came right to my doorstep. Knock on the door, package there. Guess what? I didn't even have to pay for them to bring the package to my house. Free shipping. It was just like Amazon, but it wasn't. It was chinupchestout.com. Enough of this shameless sponsorship and promotion. Let's quit paying the bills. Let's get into the guest, the featured guest, the star of the hour, Brandon Podgorski.
Brandon, I'll go ahead and kick us off today. So, as you know, I'm a former college soccer player, and I thought that this recent study was really interesting. So, in analyzing every shootout in the World Cup, in Euro League, in Champions League since 1976, researchers found that these pressure-packed shots on the goal are mostly psychological. I think that you were able to look at this study. You've seen it. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, this is really interesting. And I want to give credit. I'm going to butcher his name. I'm going to try not to, but I think it's by Geir Jordet, and it's at GeirJordet on Twitter. And like you said, he took, I think it was 5 years looking at all the Euros and Copa America and looking specifically at penalty shootouts. And what he found is that in these kind of big high pressure situations, and we've got Euro going on right now, so we can actually see some of this going on right now. When the pressure is high, you have somebody shooting who's maybe a little bit lower skill, like a defender, as opposed to a striker. If they're actually an older player, a veteran player, which I thought was kind of interesting, or if they're more fatigued, they're more likely to miss these penalty shots than they are to hit. And we were just talking about chin up, chest out. And you know, I think as coaches, like we just kind of instinctively, when a player has a free throw or they're at the bat with the big situation, they got a penalty kick, penalty shot, whatever it's going to be, you know, instinctively we're telling them, hey, you got this, visualize this, you can do it. You know, we're speaking really positive things into them, whether we know that or not as coaches. That's one of like the best things you can be doing, because some of the takeaways that they found, or at least the takeaways, I try to make things as simple as possible going through these 30, 40 page research studies. But some of the takeaways that I found in this is one, players were more apt to hit their shot if they stayed positive. If they were kind of telling themselves, you know, imagery and self-talk, they're incredibly powerful tools for athletes. So just telling themselves, hey, I can do this. I've been doing this all the time. It's like that free throw shooter who all of a sudden it hit 99% in practice and then, you know, can't hit 50% in a game. You know, it's just reminding themselves, hey, I can do this and I've done it before. Two, and I like this one, is that you've got to believe that you're in control. I think this is a really big phenomenon, especially as people are playing on the road, as opposed to home, and you know the fans are against you, or the umpire, or the referee is against you. You know, the bad weather conditions, whatever it is, it's just centering yourself and recognizing, you know, you're the one who controls what's about to happen here. Nobody else. All you got to beat is just this one defender in front of you. You know, the goalkeeper. Three, and this is kind of a nod to John Wooden. Be quick, but don't hurry. What they found in this study is you get some people, I just want to get this over with. I got it. I'm way too anxious. Let me put the ball down a kick and let me just move on. Okay, we want to be a little bit quick. We don't want to sit there and think about it forever. But at the same time, we don't want to try to get through it as fast as possible. And then four, you know, to go back to what we were just saying, the encouragement by teammates is an incredibly powerful tool. You know, having teammates who have your back. Tristen, you may have been in a situation like this playing soccer. You know, Jamy, I'm sure you have on both being an athlete and a coach. But just having teammates who believe in you, who are being positive and is going to be there and have your back, they found that to be really incredible. So really interesting study if you're on Twitter and come across that.
Well, right now we're in full swing. Summer's here. AAU, club ball, travel ball. And it's not just basketball, even though I'm partial to basketball. I was a basketball coach, and so I pay more attention to that. But a lot of other sports, this is when they're traveling. This is when they're having those super teams, those all-star teams. Maybe you're paying for, you know, thousands and thousands of dollars to travel with your son or daughter. But also this is the time when parents are going a little crazy. Athletes maybe are going a little crazy. Coaches acting a little weird. There's a lot of weirdness with summer ball, with club ball, with travel ball. Is there a better way to do this kind of stuff? Is there a better way to develop our youth? What are some takes? What are some thoughts that you have about just the way we develop our kids?
Sure. And I'm happy to throw some things out and feel free to push back or we can talk about them a little bit. But weirdness is probably a really nice way to put what happens. I know you've been to many AAU tournaments. I've coached in many of them all across the country. And weird is a really polite way to put on what happens at some of these places. But, I have nothing against club sports and I have nothing against AAU. I was part of it for a number of years. And I think it's an incredibly rewarding experience. It can be a really positive experience, and it can help shape people for the future. It can, whether it's getting exposure to coaches or just becoming a better athlete. I think it kind of gets some negative connotations, but there's some reasons for that as well. And I think it's just kind of changing our perspective as parents. I got a young child, a young boy, and obviously I'm going to push him into being an athlete or to playing sports. But there's so many great things we get out of sport as opposed to just winning, whether it be like being a good teammate, sacrifice, discipline. That's what I really want him to kind of focus on, because, less than 1% of kids or at least high school athletes are going to go on to become professional athletes at any type of level. So as we're talking about youth sport, and this is something that I've studied, in my master's program and now in my PhD, it's something that is really important to me. And I talk about quite a bit in my sports psychology class at Trine. It's just, how do we develop youth in a better way? And I think there's kind of always been this push by parents where, or maybe not always, but a predominant push by parents where, we got to get them into competition really quick, because the more that they're used to competition and hardened competition, it's just going to make them a better athlete. It's going to make them more mentally tough. But the problem we're seeing is that 70% of youth stop playing sports by the time they're 13, right? That stinks. And then what do they go off and do? And, they get addicted into these or into video games or other thing that's going on. And that doesn't mean that those things don't have their place. But at the same time, we've got an obesity epidemic in this country where I think about a third of Americans are at least overweight, if not obese, which leads to higher healthcare costs. And, not that, youth sports is this panacea. It's going to solve all these things. But I think there's a better way to do this. So as club season comes along and AAU season comes along, it's just a reminder to parents that, talk to your kid and find out what it is that they want out of this. Because as parents, we want to, they're so talented. Like my 2-year-old right now, he's jumping and he's actually getting off the air right now. He's getting some air time. He can go up until like, I don't know, a little 4-foot basket and dunk. And my initial reaction is like, babe, we don't have to stay for retirement. We're done, right? He's going to take care of it. But, only about 5% of athletes go from high school to college. And I think there's this misnomer out there that if my kid plays these club sports and we spend thousands and thousands of dollars on this, they're going to get exposure and they're going to go play college. Well, only 5% play college at any level. We're talking about NCAA all the way to NAIA, JUCO, right? Well, only about maybe 1.5–2% actually get a scholarship or full scholarship per that. So when I would do these recruiting seminars when I was an AD, and parents would say, hey, what's the best way for my kid to get a scholarship? And say, well, they probably won't. Have them get good grades. Like that's where the money is going to come from. So this is all long-winded answer, just to kind of give you a little bit of background on just things that I've studied with youth sport, and we're starting to get some more research in the last 20 years on this. But the top 10 reasons kids play sport, it's one is to have fun, and that is overarching. We have studied kids for over 30 years now, and number one reason, they just want to have fun. And then number two, they want to be able to be with friends, or at least get some exercise. Number three would be to improve their skills. Number four kind of goes along with that, just that social aspect of friends. 5 is to challenge themselves. 6 to participate in something they're good at. 7 is to play on a team. And it's not until we get to 8 is where they want to win, is where they want to be competitive. And studies show boys tend to be a little bit more competitive on girls. That might hit number 5 or 6 on guys, or it might be 7 or 8 for girls, but it's still pretty consistent across the board. So it's just this way of kind of reframing what youth sports needs to be from this highly competitive, cutthroat, you've got to do this or else you're not going to get a college scholarship, to what are some of the great things about sport that have nothing to do with actually being an athlete, which can help you to be a better leader as you get older? And how do we kind of bring those things along or develop these types of attributes? And then, hey, if you're good enough, great, you're good enough, you're going to go on. But, we all come to that point, and I've slowly realized it at 41 that the Cubs aren't going to call me. I'm dying to be their second baseman, and I have been since I was 7. That phone has not rang ever. So I'm going to stick with this professor stuff and see what happens.
Well, with you talk about parents having a discussion with their kids. I think it's also important for parents to kind of be self-reflective and analyze themselves as well. Yep. And what's their motives? Like you talked about, are you living vicariously through your kids? Do you want them to win so that you look good when you're up there in the stands? I've also talked to some parents where they'll make the comment and it's different each time, but it centers around money. Well, I've paid this amount of money for them. They need to take this seriously. Or, we've spent $5,000 on them this summer. And I'm like, most of the time you would have spent that money anyways on them in some other way, or maybe you would have went on vacation. These are vacations. Now it might be in hotels you wouldn't have picked or locations you would have picked, but it's still time that you're spending with your kids, but you're going to spend money on your kids regardless. And don't look at that a lot of times as you're wasting the money if they don't pitch a no-hitter or they don't take it as seriously as a 12-year-old as you think they should take it.
And so I wrote a paper on this exact thing a couple of years ago and did some research on this. And we were talking about kids quitting sport about 13 years old, if not a little bit sooner. And that's actually one of the pressures that kids feel, is that they understand that mom and dad paid a lot of money for this stuff. So I feel like I have to do it, even though I don't want to do it anymore. And my parents were really great about that. So I played soccer as a kid. I was awful. I could run, but I wasn't a good soccer player, and that was okay. And I think they paid for me to be on this club team, this travel team one summer. And it was just obvious, like there was no way I'm playing the next year. Right. And they were great. They just said, hey, get some experience. Let's have some fun through this. If you don't like it, you don't have to do it again. And now we were able to kind of go into things in my wheelhouse with basketball and in baseball and so forth. But kids feel that pressure, and you're right. You're probably going to be spending that money on other things, and why not spend it to actually make some like fun memories for your family? Another thing I was finding in some of the research, like families were going to tens of thousands of dollars of debt for some of these teams. So I don't know. It's a good job if you can get it running an AAU program. And not all of them. I know a lot of people do it really well. But if you want a quick buck in the summer, hey, I guess that's a route to go.
Well, Brandon, we couldn't let this show go by without talking about the highly talked about situation with Sha'Carri Richardson. She won the 100-meter dash, but tested positive for marijuana in her post-race drug test. So she was disqualified and banned from performing for about a month. What are some lessons that we can take away from this situation? And what are your thoughts on the situation just overall?
Hate it for her. I mean, it just, my heart breaks for her because, I know how hard Olympians train, and you get this one opportunity and she does a great job winning the 100 meters. And, based on what she did in the race, she would deserve to go. But, rules are rules, and we don't have to like them, and we don't have to agree with them. I'm not going to get into my stance on marijuana use, but I think there's good arguments either way. And I think there's a lot of arguments out there that, it shouldn't be banned. I mean, it's legal in, I think, in 18 states right now. And I think where she ingested it, I think was in Oregon before the trials. And it's legal in Oregon. So I feel bad for her, but USADA is very clear that it is a banned substance, and she did it, and she's paying the penalty for it. And again, I hate it for her, but I also kind of hate this a little bit in the culture where, well, it's a dumb rule. We should make an exception for this one person. And I understand like the background. She found out her mother died and it was a way to cope and all that. And that's great. But why are some rules dumb that we absolutely should be flexible and some aren't? And hate it for her. I hope she learns from it. She's been great, and I think pretty gracious in her interviews regarding this. And she's only 21, and she's going to be able to come back here in 3 years and be an Olympian. So the worst thing she can do is not learn and grow from it. I think she is. And hopefully the Olympics is going to be great. I love them and looking forward to them getting started.
Well, he's Brandon Podgorski, Trine University sports management professor, and you can follow him on Twitter at professor_pod, P-O-D, professor_pod. So Brandon Podgorski, thank you so much for joining us. That interview was brought to us by theleadershipplaybook.com. Leadership Playbook.
You've got mail.
All right, Jamie, starting 5 questions for you. Are you ready?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So the first one, what do you see as some of the biggest dangers in our society today? Just bold one right out of the gate.
What's that?
Just a bold one right out of the gate.
A big one. No warm up today. One of the biggest dangers I see, and I have a hard time boiling it down into one concise statement or maybe one word, but we don't think, and we're not compassionate. We're not sometimes tolerant of diversity of thought. Everybody wants diversity of, skin color, or diversity of maybe religion or gender or nationality or those kind of things. But we don't have as much tolerance for diversity of thought, or maybe we're not as critical thinkers as we probably should be. And what I mean by that is we see something on TV or we see something on the internet, and if it fits our narrative, if it fits the way we think, we automatically jump to that and say that's true because it fits our viewpoint. It fits our lens. If it's against what we believe, or it's not quite where we're at in our thinking, then we dismiss it, or we find a reason, we find an excuse to say that's not true, or that's fake news, or we don't like the source. And so I think we've gotten away from this critical thinking skill that I don't know if we've ever had it necessarily, but we need to see other perspectives a little bit more. We need to understand other people. And that doesn't mean that we agree with them. I love the Joe Rogan podcast. Joe Rogan is one of my favorite podcasts out there. And it's because he interviews so many people that he both agrees with and disagrees with. Now, if he has Jamy Beckler on the show and you don't like Jamy Beckler, then you immediately criticize Joe Rogan, or that's what our tendency is. You criticize Joe Rogan and says, you just gave a platform to Jamy Beckler. I don't like Jamy Beckler and what he says, and you just gave him a platform. as opposed to saying, okay, I'm going to listen to what this guy has to say, what Jamy has to say, and I'm going to try to understand why he's saying it, where he's coming from, not necessarily to prove him wrong, but just to understand him. And Joe Rogan does a great job of asking questions to try to understand these people. Not that he agrees with all these people, but he asks questions, and he'll have guests on where he agrees with maybe half and disagrees with half. And so that's why I love watching the Joe Rogan podcast, because I want to understand where people are coming from and what the diversity of thought is that people have. And I'm not going to automatically dismiss or dislike Tristen because she says one thing I disagree with. And, I think that that's our danger. I think that's a slippery slope that we're going down as a society. And I think we need to be a little bit more maybe tolerant or understanding of other people and where they're coming from, and understanding that even if we have a viewpoint that we think is correct, there might be other viewpoints out there, and we can learn from everybody.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point. So with all that being said, second question is, what were your thoughts in regards to the track athlete being suspended for marijuana?
Oh yeah. I think Brandon Podgorski I think he had a lot of great points. I agreed with everything that he said. Without getting into the morality or the legality of marijuana and whether it should or shouldn't be legal, whether that rule should even be on the books for track and field. That's not the issue for me. For me, there's two issues here. One is, did she break the rules? And we see this all the time. We just saw it with the name, image, likeness thing that came out. Some people that I respect have been very vocal of saying stuff like, well, so-and-so that was suspended or had an award taken away years ago, or records taken away for taking money from boosters, that stuff should be given back to them because now name, image, and likeness allows you to do that. But the problem was, it was a rule at that time, and you have to abide by the rules. If I get a speeding ticket for going 65 and a 55, and then a year later they change the speed limit to 65, the state highway patrol or the county is not going to send me a refund because now that speed limit has been upped. And now all of a sudden you are okay. What you did a year ago, you're okay. No, I broke a rule. So marijuana might be legal even in the place where she was running, but it wasn't legal for her as a runner. And even if they change that rule a year from now, she still was in the wrong because she did something wrong. We can't break rules and then find excuses why that rule is bad or why our behavior was okay. We know right from wrong. If we break a rule, we break a rule. Okay, with that being said, she did something that was amazing. I loved it. She took responsibility. Almost every interview I've seen with her, she took responsibility for her actions. She apologized. She didn't make excuses. She just said, I was wrong. I knew it was a rule. I was wrong. I'm paraphrasing, of course. You don't see that in our culture a lot. Even going back to the speeding example, Tristen, if I get stopped by a police officer or you get stopped by a police officer for speeding, probably our first instinct is to find an excuse. Well, I wasn't going that fast over the speed limit, or I was staying with the flow of traffic, or why didn't you stop that red car instead of my car? They were going even faster than me. We look for an excuse right away as opposed to taking responsibility for our actions. And I love that about her. Certainly she's not perfect, and certainly not every single interview she's going to be 100% responsible and 100% apologetic. But in most of her interviews, she's been very good about that, taking responsibility, knowing that she screwed up, and knowing that there's consequences for her actions. We can all learn from that. So I love that part of it, and because of that, I hope that she experiences a lot of success as a runner coming up.
Yeah, let's go ahead and switch over to another sport. So Joey Chestnut, he set another world record eating hot dogs on the 4th of July. We watched it and I thought it was absolutely insane that his competitors were so happy with being second place. Before the competition even started, their interviews, they were like, yeah, if I get second place, that's great. So Jamy, question for you. Is he the most dominant athlete of all time? And is an eating contest even a sport?
I don't know, and I'm not going to answer. No, is he the most dominating athlete? I don't know. I mean, he absolutely dominates that competition that he's in. I mean, like you said, the other competitors, they already are losers. I mean, they've already lost to Joey Chestnut before the opening bell, before the competition even starts, because he's so dominating. He's so intimidating. It's almost like when Tiger Woods was at his prime. It's just absolutely crazy how he dominates. So yeah, he's one of the all-time greatest dominating competitors, without a doubt. Is eating a sport? That's an age-old question that never has an answer, in terms of, there's a lot of things that maybe aren't sport, but you'll find them on ESPN, or we classify them as sports. It's competition. Is it a sport? Do you need physical, does there has to be a physical aspect for it to be a sport? Well, if any of us, most of us have been to an all you can eat buffet, or we've been to a barbecue where we ate too much. That was a physical endeavor. We felt that situation. So I don't know if it's a sport, but it's certainly a competition, and it does require some physical training and some physical activity to do it. So I don't know if it's a sport. But man, what he's done is absolutely amazing, both psychologically and physically. And it is fun to watch. It's gross to watch, but it is fun to watch.
Jamy, if you see the ticker down at the bottom of our screen, it actually relates to our next question. So one of our sponsors is Chin Up, Chest Out. And most podcasts, nice, I like how you picked up the mug right there. That was good. Most podcasts do have sponsors. The question is, how did you decide on your sponsors, and do you have plans to add more in the future?
Yeah, good question. And, when I listen to podcasts, and I listen to a lot of podcasts, I don't necessarily want to listen to, 10 different commercials on the podcast. So we've tried to be very select. I believe in the mission of Chin Up, Chest Out. I also believe in the founder, the owner, John Brubaker, who we had on the show a couple of weeks ago. He filled in. He filled in very mediocre for you, but he was on the show. And of all the guest hosts, all the guests we've ever had, he was definitely one of them. But I believe in admission. I believe in their gear, all that kind of stuff. He's been a longtime friend, a longtime mentor. I like the stuff that he does. And so when we had the opportunity to partner up, I wanted to do that. And the other main sponsor that we have is the namesake of our show, the Leadership Playbook. That's our leadership program. I 100% believe in that. Obviously, I'm biased, but the teams, the coaches, the ADs that have joined up with this, it's been invaluable to them. It's been great for them. All the stuff that they get with the membership, and it's cheap. And so we want to promote that, because that's something that I believe in wholeheartedly, is how can we help sports teams, but ultimately help athletes to become better teammates and more positive leaders. And so we don't have, I haven't gone out and searched for sponsors, mainly because I've got the sponsors I want, ours, and then one others with Chin Up, Chest Out. So at this moment, no, we don't have any plans to go out there and solicit, and we may not make as much money as some other podcasts, but that's fine with me, because we're trying to add value, and I want to only promote stuff that, I mean, literally I'm putting on, you can't see this at home if you're listening to this, but I'm putting on my hat again. Okay. And the reason I'm putting on my hat is, a lot of times when you listen to podcasts or a radio, the people, the only gear that they have is what they've been given for free. Okay. I've been given a shirt, I've been given a coffee mug for free, but I've also bought stuff, like literally paid money for Chin Up, Chest Out stuff. And so I don't think that happens on most podcasts. And if I wasn't willing to actually spend money on something, then I don't know how I could, in good faith, promote that.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. And I also love Chin Up, Chest Out. I love what they stand for. And I did watch the show back when I was replaced for one episode, and I think he did a great job. So Jamy, our fifth and final question is, you are active on Twitter. What are some of your favorite accounts to follow or people to follow?
Oh, wow.
Maybe Joe Rogan's in the mix.
Yeah. Actually, Joe Rogan doesn't do a lot on Twitter. He stays off that cesspool known as Twitter. for the most part. I like Twitter, but I also don't like Twitter at the same time. I think there's a lot of negativity on Twitter, but I also think it's great for getting a message out of positivity. And I follow a lot of people on Twitter. Early on, I was following pretty much everybody that followed me. So I was being kind and following back. But, you know, there's a lot of people I like to show up in my timeline. I like to follow them, but it's almost always positive people that have a positive message, not the negativity, not the criticism of other people, not the just, I'm going to be ornery or I'm just going to be negative about life. And a couple that came to mind right away, and amazingly, they both spell their name, their first name, unusual, but it's the same way. And one of them is from a coaching standpoint, at Coach John Beck, and he spells his name Jon, John. But he has some great stuff, and he came on our podcast. I believe he's a high school coach. He works with some travel ball stuff that we talked about, but also some individual workout type stuff in Pure Sweat basketball. He does a lot of stuff with them. So Coach John Beck, Jon. And then the other one, ironically, is John Gordon 11, Jon, John. So both the people that came to mind right away are Jon. And there's certainly other people, but those are two that come to mind. One's from a leadership culture standpoint, who's written a million books, John Gordon, and then Coach John Beck.
Great. Well, thank you, Jamy, for answering our starting 5 questions today. Remember, you can always send any questions at Coach Beckler with any questions you want to ask us. So whether that be for our guests, whether that be for Jamy when we do this Q&A session, any questions you have, go ahead and send them at Coach Beckler. This has been an especially fun show. Obviously, we got to talk about the Phoenix Suns, which I love. We got to talk about soccer, which I love, and always leadership. Jamy, what were some of your takeaways from today?
Well, I was wondering what your record was on shootouts. We were talking about soccer. I'm guessing you didn't keep track of that, but would you say that you were good at shootouts?
Yeah. So my whole club growing up career, I always took the penalty kicks. I always scored. I was always very confident. I got to college, and my freshman year, we had a shootout to see if we were going to continue on in playoffs. And I'm pretty sure I didn't want to take one. I was the 5th kicker nominated by the team and coach. Did not want to take one. It's all about confidence, like Brandon shared. And I think 4 out of 5 of us missed. So it was a good time.
Well, but even though you missed those shootouts and missed those kicks, you were a great teammate. Great teams have great teammates. Thanks a lot for helping us out again today, for joining us, being the director, producer, co-host. So thank you, Tristen. Great teams have great teammates. Guys, remember, smash that like button, or at least just tap that like button or that subscribe button or whatever the notifications is where you're listening to this or watching this. We really appreciate all of our fans, all the people that support us. Thank you so much. And remember, next Thursday, same place, noon o'clock Eastern time. You can watch us live or you can listen back on the Success is a Choice podcast network. So until next week, remember that success is a choice. What choice will you make today?